Hey, my name's Josh Harowitz. I do a podcast called Screening of Elvis. It's always a good sign when we're talking and screening a movie about 9 months after it initially screened, right? Good. I've been talking to this young man virtually his entire career, and it's so exciting to see everything he's brought to the evolution of his still young career. Every so often, you know, the right actor, the right role, the right moment, and I think you'll agree with me, it's happening right now for Mr. Austin Butler. Can you give a round of applause?
I always talk about how in any artistic endeavor you cannot, it's at least wise not to focus on the outcome, because otherwise you get trapped in this idea of playing to what you hope the perfect idea of this is going to be, and then you can miss the real fulfillment, which is the process itself. But I'm not going to lie to you, it would hurt my heart a lot if we put all that time in and all the effort and all the care and then it just went down the drain, you know, in the sense of people not liking it. But I knew that was a possibility. And it was the same thing as when I auditioned, you know, guys and I had 5 months together of just workshopping and trying things, and then I had to do the screen test, and I realized I may not actually get this part. And now I've got to just rest in the fact that I got 5 months to work with one of my favorite filmmakers, and the fulfillment has to be in that. It's like what I tell the, you know, actors who come up and they talk about, you know, how do you approach auditioning or anything, and I always say it's not about getting the job, it's about you doing the thing, you're doing the acting. That's the thing that matters. You know, you're in that room, acting in a room that you really think for, you know? You can't miss it. Feels so good when you get that part, but it's about the work, you know. But it feels really good that you don't learn it from someone.
So, congratulations again, man. Look, this has been a hell of a ride, and it keeps on going. Well, just in the last month or two since I last saw you, one Golden Globe, one and of course nominated for his first Academy Award. So, I'll hear first a little bit about, this has been a very long journey. I mean, you had a long time to prepare for the role, you had a long time shooting the role. This was, in the midst of COVID, it was a big break, and now it's a long time talking about the role. It is, it's a long journey. So, are you, put me in your headspace right now. I mean, you've had a lot of Elvis in your head the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, it started with Baz here in New York, and the journey it's so, I really need to take about a year to just think about it after all this, because you're only ever taking one day at a time, one moment at a time, and I remember that year and a half leading up to filming of just the terror and the excitement and the amount of pressure that I felt, and then while filming, you know, you have those moments where you go home and something happened that you really didn't expect, but then as time passes after you've done filming, you kind of question, did we get it at all? Did we get even close? And I remember the real fear before Cannes of, is anybody gonna like this film? And, you know, will I ever work again? And all those things. And, so that's what this time. It just, I feel so lucky, and I feel really, really grateful right now. Yeah. So, but then I walked out on stage, and it became a complete out-of-body experience. Because for one, looking down at the audience, that is identical to what I've watched on the footage a million times. And so you seeing them so truthful, and then the music starts, and I start seeing genuine emotion on their faces. And suddenly I'm seeing a woman blush, and I'm seeing somebody else laugh, and somebody else rocking out, and suddenly now there's a rapport. And so I'm feeling that, but then I look down at my arm, and I see the black leather, and I see the rings that are identical to Elvis's, and the microphone, and the set, and the way the cameras are positioned. And I studied this footage more than I've seen anything else in my life. And I'm realizing that this is the closest thing to what Elvis saw that day that he performed this. Nobody else has ever had that experience that authentically. What an amazing thing for me to get to experience. I mean, I miss that so much. And I feel so fortunate that I got to experience that, because it's really a once in a lifetime experience. I mean, we had so many conversations throughout the time, and most of them would be us. And somebody asked us the other day if we ever had a differing opinion. But we never, Baz and I both were like, can you remember a moment where we had that? And we can't remember it, because the experience it was always, I'd read a quote from a book and I'd send it to him. And then he'd say, yes, and then he'd say to something again, yes, and. So suddenly it's this process of us just excitedly, foraging together for who the truth of Elvis was. Because there's so many different ideas. There's one book that says that he was one way in a moment, and another book that says a different thing. And so it's always about trying to find the truth, and so the other thing about Baz is that I never, no matter who it was, if they had an idea, it could be the person sweeping the floors, I never heard him say no. I always heard what he would do. Somebody would give him their idea. He'd say, you know what I love about what you're saying? And then he'd find, even if it was just a sliver of his vision, he would make it feel as though it was their idea. And I've been on sets with directors who will slap your hand when you come up with an idea, and it brings you this level of fear. You kind of hold back things because you think, I don't want to be stupid. I don't want to, I don't want to come up with something that he's not going to like. But Baz always led with this open-hearted, really collaborative, exciting way of working, so that then you just feel excited to bring ideas, and that's the best way to work.
Letting United ideas for you, what comes to mind when you think of her contributions on set?
Well, I mean, so there was 9,000 costumes that she came up with, and with every background artist, she would create a story for each one of them. And so there weren't extras on the film. There was just supporting artists, and so everybody had their own through line, and so that's one quality, because it meant that you're never a one-person show, and so I'm surrounded by all these people who are living within the reality that we're living, and it helps you to suspend disbelief all the more. To pick one costume is nearly impossible. I just think back to all those fittings that we had. The amount of jumpsuits I tried on. The amount of times we tried on that pink suit from the hayride, because it was all about finding how you move in cloth, how you move in leather, what texture makes you move in a certain way. And so we tried so many different things, and she said, it needs to be a different fabric because it's not moving quite right on your legs. And as soon as you find the right one, then it helps you so much. And on top of that, she's doing production design. So the first time I ever performed as Elvis was 60th Special. And I walk out there, and we've talked about this before, but needless to say, I was absolutely terrified, because I had all this prep, and suddenly here's the moment of truth between action and cut, that you gotta bring it, otherwise it's all for nothing. And that's so much pressure. But when I walked out there, I talked about the sort of pep talk I had with myself beforehand about Elvis this was a make or break moment in his life. This was, if it didn't go well for him, he wouldn't have a career as a musician anymore. That's exactly how it felt for me in acting, because I thought, if this doesn't go well, you don't get two of these chances, I was all in. Music was Elvis's language, and it was like a spirit coming out of him. And so I knew that from the very first time that I met Baz, the only way that we could possibly that I could possibly do this authentically is if I'm singing it full out every time. Because otherwise your spirit isn't connected, you know, and so I needed that pressure, even in moments where I knew he may blend our voices together, like in Unchained Melody or something like that, where I knew that if I'm not singing as well as I possibly can, then it's not gonna feel real, you know? When you're in the later 70s and then you go back to 56 the next day. And that's where that wallpaper in my apartment came in handy, because I would finish my day on set and I'd go back home and I'd just sit in that room and I'd sort of track where he was spiritually and emotionally and physically and all those things. And I had these key recordings and of audio and home movies and different things from whatever time period it was. And so when I was 3 hours or 6 hours or later on 8 hours in the chair in the morning getting hair and makeup done, I would just check in with those materials and it would just lock me into that time period. And thankfully I had so much time to prepare that it's sort of like Pavlov's dogs, you know, you trigger that and then suddenly you're in the 50s again or whatever that was. It is, you know, I was with Rami and Malek after the baptism the other night, and we were sitting in this, we were sitting on this couch, and there was a DJ playing, and at one point the DJ put on Bohemian Rhapsody. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I said, do you have that feeling of Freddy's always going to be like one of your best friends? Where you hear that voice and you just go, there you are, my man. You know, like his hand's always on your shoulder. And so few people have experienced that, where your whole life is like, it felt like the meaning of my life for that chunk of time was just trying to understand Elvis's mind and see out of his eyes as much as I possibly could. And Rami's one of the few people who knows what that was like. So that was really special for me. We kind of sang that song together. And that's how I feel with Elvis. It's like I know there are always an Elvis song will come on, or all the, you know, people come up to you on the street and they say that they like the film. So I'll still get to talk about it, but it just won't be my job in a way, you know. And yeah, but it is. I miss it. When he first started playing the guitar, he would play in a room and he would turn out the lights and he'd ask everybody to turn around. He wanted to perform, but somehow wanted them to not quite be looking at him. You know, there was that shyness that he had. And I feel that way. I feel so fortunate that I found acting at a young age, but I was such an incredibly shy, self-conscious kid. And I still have so much of that in myself. I just now have some tools in which I can come out here, and I realize that it's about like getting the attention off of myself and onto you guys, you know. And as much as I can not think about me but think about you, then that's how I can even possibly get up here and be in a room full of most of you staring this way. But it also is those things that pulled out of yourself, you know, and so the parts that felt furthest from me were getting on stage in front of people, and I never sang in front of anybody, or I would never dance before, you know. So thankfully I had a long time to slowly get comfortable, and so those are the things that felt the furthest. But then once you get on stage and you actually do it, and you're doing that in the midst of actually connecting, it is one of the most exhilarating, liberating feelings. That I'm so grateful for that gift that I was given, that, you know, in this whole process. Because I knew when you go on this journey, you're going to come out the other side different. Because it's going to force things out of you, and you're going to have to pull bits of yourself that you've either repressed or don't think that you're capable of, or whatever those things are. So yeah, it's been a huge gift in that way for me, just making me feel more comfortable in those situations.